We'll start with Miles Killebrew first, because he's a special teamer. Shout out to the special teams guys in the building. But signed here for what, 1.125 mil a year ago. So it's not a cheap special teams contract, but it's still not the Derek Watt contract either, where you're getting paid multiple millions. But I like the productivity from him. He had 2 block punts last year, man, that really helped us in both of those games. You think about the block at the Bills game to start the season out. We don't win that game without that block. Then he has the block versus the Chargers, the get the offense back out there in the short field. I think in that time in the game, we took the lead off of that drive, or we tied it up, if I remember correctly.
We got it within a score.
Yeah, okay, so we got it within a score. So that, I mean, he's had really significant plays in that vein. So I guess for me, when I think of Miles, I'm trying to think of like my pros and my cons with him. I said, man, the productivity jumps off the screen from a special teams element. Anytime you're getting blocks, that's huge. When I think of the contract, like I said, he's still on the cheaper side at the 1.125 element of it. So I do like that. I guess if I had to have a negative about him, though, well, actually, before I get to my negatives, we'll stick with the positives. What are your thoughts on Miles, though, man? Any positives you have with him?
Oh, I'm with you. 2 game-breaking, game-changing plays in the Bills one. You're right. We don't come away with that win. And then in the Chargers game, it got us back in that one to eventually take the lead, and the defense let us down with that last drive. But, I mean, we don't have that special teams, like ace in the hole, that special teams go-to captain type after we didn't re-sign Jordan Dangerfield. And it feels like, to me, Killebrew has taken on that role for us.
Yeah.
So I don't really see any negatives to re-signing him. I'm all for it. I'm with you. The contract's going to be cheap. He's a special teams guy, and as much as me and probably a lot of fans write off special teams, I'm starting to come around to it a little bit. You've been trying to teach me up. And I see the impact. We saw it in 2 games this year.
Too, man.
We saw it in multiple games, not even just with Killebrew, but also like the Joe Hayden block that was called back. I mean, Boswell being clutch as hell. We're seeing the ups and the downs of Presley Harvin and how special teams can affect things.
Yeah, and even around the league.
I guess I didn't realize it as much whenever I was younger growing up. I don't know why. I just didn't. Well, here's the other thing, though. Our defense was always amazing. So, like, a lot of this stuff really didn't matter. Jeff Reed was always a good kicker. So, yeah, maybe that's why I didn't really care about it as much. Now we just got like a volatile situation on both offense and defense, all these changing parts. We need something that's going to be more of a staple for us. And with Boswell, now we sign guys like this to improve our like punt coverage, kicking coverage, whatever it is. We need that.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. That's the thing. You hit on it, man. In the older times, man, when you were just so dominant, right? It was just gross in terms of how you could shut teams out, what the Steelers defense could do, or even times what the offense could do. Sometimes special teams becomes less of a factor. But as the talent around the league continues to get improved, and as we see how these offenses have improved as well, you're not shutting out teams anymore. And with that, it's like, man, the margin of error becomes tighter because of how explosive the rules are for offensive players and stuff. So it's like, man, how do you bridge that gap? How do you still stay competitive? Field position, that becomes that much more of an issue. If you can steal a possession, whether you're getting a block punt or even being able to flip the field on a big return, those things we've seen not just in Pittsburgh, but even in the NFL postseason. How many games have been impacted by special teams, whether it's missed field goals, whether it's blocked special teams plays, whether it's returns for touchdowns or big field goal returns. Absolutely, man.
Beat the
Absolutely. And for me, when I see that, it continues to remind me of that. Now, when I think of Miles, if I had a negative for him, the only things that I could think of, I was like, really no upside on defense, right? He's not a guy that you are going to put out there and expect to have any type of productive. I know they had him. He initially came over as a safety. Then they classified him as a linebacker. So I don't really feel like he's going to give us anything there. My other concern, and this could just be my thinking, not his, was just that since he isn't homegrown, he came over through free agency. He had 2 blocks this season. Blocks in special teams are huge in terms of dollars. Blocks are kind of like touchdowns. They're kind of like sacks. Could he be looking to flip this and get a bigger payday somewhere else on the open market? That was the part for me that I was like, could potentially be
blame him for that.
A con. Right. Because I'm like, if I'm Miles, I don't have any ties here. I came over on a 1-year deal through free agency and I did what I needed to do. I got me, 2 blocks, made some big plays on special teams. So it's like, yeah, my market, when I put that tape out there now, yeah, I might be able to increase it. Maybe I double it from 1 mil to 2 mil. So those are some of the things that I was like, I could see potentially being an issue. But outside of that, man, I definitely think that he's a guy that I know I would want back.
2 mil, bring him back.
I'm cool with that, man. I'm cool with that. I don't want it to balloon to like where Derek Watt type of money is, though, if that makes sense. Because Derek I think he's averaging 2.5, almost 3. I don't want it to get to that range because I don't feel like he's as productive as those guys in that class. Like when I think of that type of money, I think of how Rosie Nix was. I think of Tyler Matakavich. I think of those guys, right? And I'm like, yeah, Miles, his productivity, it jumped off the screen, but I just feel like those guys, they still give me a lot more in terms of like the play in and play out tackles. And obviously some of those guys being able to affect the offense and defense element of the game as well. That's why I like, giving them a little bit more words with Miles. I don't think he gives me that part as well.
No, yeah, because whenever he was in on defense, I'm like, why the hell is Killebrew in right now? I don't want him in. I really don't want him in. And I don't think did he make one play on defense this year? Maybe one. I don't want to.
He might have had. Yeah.
Him. He might have.
He might have had a player too, man. He might have had a player
tackle for loss, something like that.
He might have had something, man.
Yeah, I think he's a no-brainer.
Hey, talking about. Well, why you had to say he might have had a little play or something? Yo, that's so foul.
He might have.
He might have made a little play. He had a little something. He did a little something.
I was gonna say something about Tuska, but you know what? He had a big sack or two.
He did. He definitely did.
What was it? The Browns game? Yeah,
that was big, man. Heck yeah. Cause shoot, that's what we were thinking that TJ was about to break the record, and we was like, no, we don't want Tuska getting the sack. We need TJ getting the sack, and TJ came right back in like the next play. Heck yeah.
Yeah. How many did he have in that? What did he have? Like 3 or 4 in that game?
I think he ended up with 4 because the one where I guess Baker slid. Yeah. And he was like the closest guy over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on Killebrew. I'm for bringing him back. I don't really see that much of a downside outside of the contract maybe getting a little too high.
That's the big thing, right?
But yeah, you even brought up his limitedness.
Yeah.
In terms of playing defense, that's not really his thing. He's just going to be more of a special teamer. But I think we could use that. That's my point. I don't really look as that much of a downside.
Gotcha. Because to me, I just thought of like Darius Hayward-Bay. He was another example, right? We were paying him.
Yeah.
He was getting good money for special teams, but he also could give you offense, right? He was going to give you the deep threat a little bit or the little gadget plays. When I thought of Rosie Nix, he was going to also be a fullback. And we saw the impact that he had as a fullback. Derek Watt, even though we don't utilize Derek Watt, he still is supposed to be able to give you some, blocking ability and stuff like that out the backfield. We just, like I said, haven't really utilized him here like that, but his tape shows that he has been more than capable of doing that. And even Dangerfield to an extent, he was a part of like some of the goal line packages, the multiple safety packages that we would use as well. So when I think of that, I'm just like, all right, if you're not giving me that much in terms of the full robustness, the full, all right, I have some type of 10 play package on defense. I don't want to pay those type of special teamers more than 2 mil. Even Robert Golden was another example. Remember when we paid him, he was a special teams captain here, but he also would come in and play as that third safety. When we went to our sub package ball. So it's like, if you're giving me special teams plus something else, we can talk more 2+ mil. But when you're only giving me just special teams, I don't really want to do more than that money right there because I think you could just get better players or more impactful depth players with that money going elsewhere.
Unless you keep having 2 blocks a year.
Very true. 2 blocks a year.
You do 2 blocks a year. Well, hey, bump that up to 3.
Hey, no question. Now you be acting like you're what's the cat up in New England? They're going Matthew Slater when you start talking that because Slater has made a career, multiple millions of dollars per year doing that type of stuff, whether it's blocks, whether it's force and fair catches, tons of tackles. Like if you're doing that, absolutely. But we got to see because 2 blocks a year, that's a tough pace to stay on. But we'll see.